I joined the Richmond Diocese in August 2016, and on my first visit to the bishop, at that time it was Bishop De Lorenzo, Francis De Lorenzo, who was the bishop of the diocese. He was calling me Father Francis. So I told him, Bishop, I want to reserve the Francis for you and the Holy Father. So I want to be called Father Boat. He laughed and laughed and laughed. And since then, my known name in this diocese is Father Boat. The boat is spelled B-O-A-T, fishing boat, the boat that brings Jesus to you. And if you remove the E-N-G of my name, you are left with B-O-A-T, boat. Currently, I am the pastor of St. Mary's Church in Whitfield and St. Edward's Mission Church in Pulaski. I'm here today to invite you to come over to Macedonia and help us financially. My dear people of God, we just heard what I personally describe as a strange passage from St. Matthew. Some of us would certainly dispute that it came from the mouth of Jesus had it not been told by one of his close apostles who worked with him and recorded what he heard and what he saw. It's one of those stories which, if taken at face value, is kind of disturbing. At the core of the story is a conversation between Jesus and a Canaanite woman. And truly, what transpires is surprising. Now, what the disciples did was not surprising. They wanted Jesus to have nothing to do with the Canaanite woman, that is, an unvalued outsider. But Jesus, why would he say the things he said? We know Jesus to be a holy person, a son of God, the one who never sinned. Why should such words come from his mouth? At first, he basically tries to dismiss her, kind of brush her aside. Then he rudely calls her a dog, or implies that she is one. After more pleading by the desperate woman, Jesus finally relents and does what she asks. It's like my presence here in Holy Cross Church to beg for money. It was resisted because your church, this church, also needs all the financial help for the project ahead of you. There is so much that seems to be missing in this story. So much a different narrator could have provided. It would be nice to know what sort of day they had had at this point. Were they worn out physically and emotionally and mentally? What were the expressions on the faces of Jesus and the woman? Could that have told us something? And what exactly was Jesus thinking when he said those harsh words? My dear friends, we don't know and we will never know. But that doesn't mean that we have to remain in the dark. Every passage in Scripture must be taken in light of everything else in Scripture, as well as everything that has been passed down in faith to this day. We cannot just examine this story in isolation. We must interpret it in a way that is consistent with who we know Jesus to be. That means that there must be more to this story, more going on than what is on the surface, what we read on the Bible. So why would Jesus handle the situation in the way he did? After all, we know that Jesus is loving, Jesus is compassionate and forgiving and understanding and every other good thing. And so he must be acting that same way in this passage. It seemed that he clearly wanted to draw something out of the woman, not because he did not know it already or needed to hear it again. Rather, it seemed that he needed his disciples to hear what she had to say. He needed them to come to a new understanding, one that they were clearly resisting, which is shown clearly by their continued dislike for Canaanites and their people. Jesus knew that the woman got it, that she understood it, that she somehow knew that Jesus didn't see her as other or as an outsider or as someone not worthy of his love. And by enticing the woman to parrot the word dog back to him, Jesus was shining a light on her great faith, on her great truth, that he in no way saw her the way the disciples saw her. And she was rewarded for her faith in Jesus, for her believing in his goodness, his compassion, his love and concern for her and for her daughter's plight. I have often thought that there was probably a kind of silent communication between the woman and Jesus, that they understood one another without having to say much. Maybe it wasn't just Jesus that had grasp. Maybe it wasn't just Jesus that had a grasp of what was unfolding. Maybe the woman played an active and conscious role in what Jesus was trying to accomplish through her seemingly tense exchange. Or maybe that's just my modern mind playing tricks on me. We will never know with complete certainty because some parts of the story are somewhat hidden from us. The narrator didn't share everything, but what we do know is that the woman believed that Jesus could make a difference and would make a difference in her life and in the life of her daughter. It's like my presence here today. I am convinced that you, the good people, the generous people of Holy Cross Church, will certainly make a great financial impact or a big difference in the financial life of St. Mary's and St. Edward churches. And for that kind of faith, for that kind of trust, the woman and her daughter were blessed, just as we from St. Mary's and St. Edward's are going to be blessed by your generosity. The rest of it, the words said aloud between the two of them, maybe that was all for the benefit of the disciples within earshot. Did they understand the point Jesus was making? Did they have a change of heart? Did they start dismantling the unjust walls that separated who was in from who was out? We don't know. But my dear friends, we are also within earshot. We are also listening to these same words today. Will we start seeing one another differently? Seeing St. Mary's as not Holy Cross, forgetting that we are all one Holy Roman Catholic Church, and that giving to St. Mary's is the same as giving to Holy Cross Church? Or will we keep making distinctions and putting churches in boxes and continue to make unjust assumptions about others? Our God, the narrator of our lives, needs to know. So I'm here today to ask you to help me, my church, financially. I was appointed a pastor of my church, St. Mary's in Whitfield, 3 years ago. And a year later or so, we found the church was leaking. The church was built in 1937, but the original church was in 18-something. And we asked somebody to go up and advise us. He went on the roof and found that we need to replace the roof. And you know how expensive things are these days. Where do we make enough money to do this? That is why the bishop has asked me to come to you, to invite you to come over to Macedonia and help us. Macedonia, which is only 133 miles away from here, my church. My rectory is as old as Methuselah. It needs refurbishment. The flow of water is something that is not good. I cannot use my bathroom while I am doing dishes or I am doing laundry. One facility at a time. Imagine this. If I have never been to any part of America, it was going to give me a wrong picture of America, but I lived in New York and I lived in St. Bede at Williamsburg. I know what things are, how things flow and flow very well. But come to St. Mary's, it is totally different. And our answer to it is money, the dollar. So please help us. High cost of heating and cooling. You know, here it can be very cold and it can be very warm. So you need to use the air condition, you need to use the heater. How do you pay for this? My car running. The next priest residence is about 35 miles away from me. It means we have many cities that come to my church. But in spite of that, our masses don't go beyond 50 or 60. And 1/3 will be visitors. We have a lot of visitors. Interesting, recently we saw that Whitfield has 60 hotels. I don't know what they're doing there. Well, it's all because Interstate 77 and 81 meets there. So people stop over to attend Mass. The other time I had about 96 people in the church, with 1/3 of them being residents. About 2/3 were visitors. So probably we are thinking of trying to tax the visitors. You have to do something to raise money. So I need your help. Our Sunday collections are nothing to write home about. The highest you can get on ordinary Sunday is about $1,000. It's only on the first Sunday that we are able to make a couple of thousands, all because some of the parishioners give their collections once a month. So I'm here to ask you to come, to plead with you to help us. Try to give all you can, and God will bless you. Let me remind you one thing, that the church is missionary, and we are all called to be missionaries. And I know not all of you will be able to go to the missions and support the missionary work. But the truth is that our money can go to the missions. So I'm inviting you today to bring your money for us to use to run the church in the missions, and God will bless you. Thank you.